And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of our Friday broadcast. We call this Making Money Fridays here on LAB Radio, and twice a month we are joined by Dr. Steph. Show me the money. Today is March the 14th, 2025 in the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the seventh millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place. You're on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on livinginblack.com. And let me just get all of these different streams up and running. And what a joy, what a joy, what a pleasure it is to be joined by our sis star. Dr. Chef is joining us from her secret island enclave in Jamaica. Are you in Jamaica today?
Not yet, not yet, but
Okay.
soon, soon. By the next time we are live, I will be there. I leave this weekend.
Awesome. We're all excited for you to be making
Thank
this
you.
wonderful new chapter in your life. How's things been going for you, Doc, since we last talked?
Oh my goodness, it's been amazing. A lot has been happening in the world. A lot
Mm-hmm.
has been happening around everything that we're going to be talking about today is leaning into your mindset and listening to spirit and being guided and even understanding how turbulence happens, to cause
Mm,
you to shift and move. And sometimes you take a step forward, you feel like you're taking two or three steps backward, but that's just part of the process, right? And so
that's
your
right.
mindset is what determines if you will continue forward in spite of what may be happening around you, and so that has that level of refinement and understanding has continued to allow me to not only see and practice in my own journey, but also
Mm-hmm.
recognize the critical, process for others along their journey.
That's right. And that's why we are here on Making Money Fridays, is to do the best we can to reflect upon our own actions, activities, life experiences, our knowledge base, etc., but to inform, inspire, excite, encourage our listeners to get on their pathway and to move as firmly along that pathway as possible. And it's a wonderful job. It's a wonderful duty, Doc. I got to say, I do love it. And I use this platform also to kind of drive the writing of my books. One of the recent books that came out, and I think, didn't I get you? I think I got you a copy called uh, Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6. And with the right mindset that you're speaking of today, with the right mindset, we do prepare for catastrophic events happening in the world, some of which we don't need to wait for mass media to tell us what's happening. We can see it, we can feel it in our real lives.
Absolutely, it's true. And that's the power of not only being connected to spirit, but also being able to validate that it's true spirit guiding you and when that's guiding you, right? Because a lot of times, if you are felt, I used to wonder earlier along my journey, people would say how important it was to meditate. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, okay, I'm not sure that I'm able to sit still or whatever. But what I didn't realize that meditation, meaning being quiet and listening, I journaled a lot along my journey. And that actually was part of me listening and then documenting what was being said to me. And so that was part of the meditative process. And so I said, aha, now
Mm-hmm.
I understand the connection, and so it's just really important to think about what it is. We each have an assignment, just like our individual fingerprint. And in those assignments, oftentimes other people looking offer a lot of commentary, a lot of opinions. Oftentimes people are projecting their own story into your story. And so you have to be able to distinguish between the two. That's where discernment becomes so critical. And so you have to be able to go back and check and know, okay, great, that's maybe your experience, that might be your opinion, but that's not my experience. That's not the assignment that I've been given. A lot of people have, chimed in and said, well, maybe you should do this and maybe you should do that. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not getting the direction from you.
Mm.
I'm moving with the spirit. And guess what? And in those confirmations, I don't see you in the conversation. So you could not possibly be qualified to tell me how to move.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have enough information. You don't know what the assignment is. What are you basing your information on? And that's the other reason why it's so important for people to be mindful of the source of someone's not only messages, but who are you allowing to speak into your possibility, because words are things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a very, very important point that you make, is because too often, so often, we're driven by the noise of the chaotic civilization.
Mhm.
And some of us have come to believe, myself included, that this chaotic noise that is across the whole of the background of the civilization within which I live, the United States, the wealthiest nation in the world for the past nearly a century, but that this is now being stage managed to keep the individuals in this chaotic state, because it makes it easier for the hegemonic forces, the controlling forces, to control us if we are chaotic, separated, and antagonistic toward each other. Your thought?
Absolutely. That's 100% what it's all about. When you think about, some of the analogies that we use, life on a treadmill, it's all
Mm-hmm.
going faster and faster and faster. The between devices and all these things, there's all more noise, all of these things are not by accident. It's so tragic. I was even looking at a guy was talking about the computer screens and
Mm-hmm.
the energy field of being in front of the computer screens and why they were designed one way as opposed to another way, because that allows a certain access to a frequency modification. And those frequency modifications make it easier for your mind to fall in alignment with the control and messaging that's being directed at you. And again, many of these things you're not even consciously aware. You're just wondering
Mm.
why you're drawn to. Same thing about the food addictions, right? Those things are
Mm-hmm.
chemically modified on purpose so that you are addicted to them. And then they all keep working in concert. And what happens is it creates that instability, that lack of balance, that lack of clarity. And that just continues to morph into people who are easy to control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The very first point, as we're beginning this discussion today on mindset, the very first point that you made is on a spiritual mental alignment. Can you expound on that spiritual mental alignment, the power of belief?
Absolutely. I think we are spiritual beings experiencing a human journey. And, my mother and I used to talk when I was younger using an analogy that you go to the store and you buy a television set. The television set has everything in it to work. But if it's not plugged into the source, it will not
Hmm.
function. And that's the same with us. We are designed to be plugged in to source. Our paths have already been determined before we arrive, and our assignments have been determined. And so my grandmother used to talk about the analogy of life was sort of like a bullhorn that's tight at one end and wide at the other end. And so, depending upon how you entered the bullhorn, would determine your journey. Some people
Hmm.
stand up, they start off, they're at the top of their game, but as life progresses, they begin to shrink down to the tight end of the bullhorn. Some people start out at the tight end and it seems like they are slow starters, or it's taken a long time for them to get traction, and it feels like
Mm-hmm.
they've just been crawling, crawling, and crawling, and then they end up walking out of the tall end of the
Mm-hmm.
bullhorn. And so she would say this, that we each have an assignment, and with that, we have a sort of a cross to carry in our assignment. Some of us, our cross is so small that we could put it on a necklace.
Mm.
Some of us, our cross is so large that we can barely drag it along our journey. But that means that our assignment is that much larger. There are times that that cross that we're carrying is heavy and we feel like we want to stop along the journey, but it's being plugged into that spiritual source. Whatever you choose to name it, I believe that it's God Almighty, and that feeds my source. That's my source. And leaning into that source for guidance is essential, because what I realize is that there's a difference between what we're supposed to do and how it is to be done, right? And as humans, sometimes we get all in the middle of the how, and that is not our assignment.
Mm.
So it's important to be able to, recognize where you are and where you're headed. If you haven't seen where you're supposed to be headed, the how can't get you there.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that the impact of culture? That ultimately, culture, a set of, we talk about the six axioms of culture: spirituality, language, traditions, historical perspectives, our morality, and our logical reasoning. Isn't that the function of culture? To help each and every one of us find our own unique, specific journey?
Yes, but it's so funny. I'm working on a talk that I call Flipping Maslow. And this
Okay.
came to me actually about a year and a half ago, the last time I was in Jamaica. I was walking on the beach, as I often do, meditating in the morning. And I was thinking about the pyramid, the hierarchy, where you begin with basic needs met and then you move up this pyramid. And ultimately, you get to a point of self actualization. And I always felt that I sort of kept skipping steps. Like I have always been sort of working on the self actualization while I'm working on the basic needs met, but it seemed like it kept being sort of, dynamic. You're going through peaks and valleys along the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me that really, if we flip Maslow, and if at the beginning we really learned the essentials of mindset and self
Mm-hmm.
actualization first, if that was our foundation, everything else would take care of itself.
That is a wonderful thought. You know, I had given consideration to the writings of Robert Maslow, which I do believe are very important that all of us should be aware of. But that this emphasis on before I can get to the higher mission, the higher needs, the higher functioning, I have to take care of the basics. Well, we're living in a society right now with all this background noise, commercialization, and advertising, the lingering aspects of Edward Bernays' constant manipulations of our wants and desires, that people are saying, well, I'm going to get to my higher self once I meet these uh, basic needs. But the basic needs keep changing. The basic needs used to be for food, clothing, shelter, and family. But now the basic needs are: I need a new wardrobe, I need a car to impress. You'll have a lot of young women out here who saying, I can't and won't find a man, a husband, sort of family until I can find that person who meets this needs, this needs, this needs, this needs. And then by the time they finish making that list, there's only 5 out of every 100 men out here who even fit that criteria. And are you going to have 80% of the women competing for 5% of the men? So I think you are right on point. And I like that title of that theme. Maybe I'll talk you into your 90-day Get That Out as a book, Flipping Maslow. I think you're spot
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely. I am, and thank you. Hold me accountable to that because I actually want to use that as a TED Talk. So,
Mm-hmm.
I've shared in advance, but that's really my plan. And so I've started an outline. I have, started the notes, and it is one of the top priorities as soon as I get to Jamaica and get back connected to spirit, where spirit is just, pouring over me. I find myself being fully creative when it is that I am well rested and my
Mm-hmm.
spirit is being fed. And, that's part of the uniqueness that I've experienced in Jamaica. And I can't wait because I know this year too will touch down on the continent. And I look forward to, having that experience as well that I know will be nurturing and fulfilling, right? But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, yes, it really is about understanding that because guess what? When you feed your soul and spirit and you live into that self actualized behavior and experience for yourself, you don't have to have that checklist for your partner. Your energy is going to vibrate at a certain frequency that your partner comes looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go it. You need to be. If you are being, you attract who you are being
Yeah.
energetically and
Mm-hmm.
spiritually. So it don't matter how big of a checklist you have. If you're not going to attract. Or if you attract, you're not going to connect. If you
Mm.
connect, it won't be sustainable.
That's right. That
Water
sounds
seeks
like.
its own level, and that's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing in relationships and experience.
I hope that's a chapter of the book.
All right, all right, all right. I'll have to look back at this conversation and use it as notes, for my
That's right.
actions. Yes, absolutely.
You're
Absolutely.
on a roll, Doc. You're on a roll. That creative spirit is flooding. Keep your mouth going. Let's talk about mindset. Obviously, you have put together some notes that you want to bring to the conversation about this establishing the correct mindset.
Yes, yes. When I think about mindset, mindset is about really, making sure that you are speaking what it is you hope to realize. And so, what happens is if we're talking about wealth, and this seems to be a stumbling block for sadly so many of our folks who've been conditioned to believe that wealth is something that we should not pursue. Yes, you are here to contribute to and to expand humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are told that we are supposed to leave an inheritance for our kids' kids. And in order to do that, you must take the resources that have been granted under your purview and you must see how you can expand and build upon them. And so, in order to do that, you can't in one conversation say, oh, I'm working on this, meaning that I'm not interested in money. I hear this often. I'm not interested in money. I'm not interested in this. Well, then why are you consuming? You are interested in money. You are interested. You're just directing it inappropriately. This has been said often, in particular, about the Black American community, too often, that we lean into supporting everyone else's business and community, but we don't see it in the same manner when it comes to our own. We pay and consume at full price for everyone
Mm-hmm.
else's products. But suddenly, when we start talking about and wanting to do business with one another, we want a discount, we need it for free, we need, and it's like, wow, that's interesting. I had to invest the same resources and oftentimes even more to establish what it is I'm providing to you. Your mindset has to be one of realizing that if you are cheating me in business, you're really just cheating yourself in life.
The unraveling of what you just spoke about, there's layers to it. We understand we do have this duty to leave a legacy to our children and our children's children, at least two generations, to
Mhm.
be successful materially in my life, in your life. Yet then again, because of the impact of capitalism, feudalism, mercantilism, these isms of economic exchange, let's call it, I'm going to be nice. Because of these lingering impact of these isms of exchange, our team, LIB Radio, is predominantly serving the interests of the global black family, as well as other ethnicities of progressive mindset. Our
Mhm.
team has been disabled because of the impact of mercantilism, where our bodies were sold by the millions between continents, feudalism, where a small group wants to control all of the land and food production and housing and everything by which the ordinary general family will thrive, and capitalism, which is essentially the dollar is God. So, talk to us, Doc, from your perspective on this mindset. How do we set up specific strategies to overcome the impact of these highly influential and quite often very destructive isms that are impacting many families' lives?
Absolutely. So remember, I always say it's amazing how some of the sayings we may have been introduced to over the journey, how they've become just so clear. One of those being, make sure that you pay yourself first. But in
Mm-hmm.
order for you to understand and evaluate and to receive that in your spirit, that paying yourself first is about valuing yourself first. If you do not value yourself, if you do not realize that there is abundance, we hear this analogy of, is the glass half full and half empty? Well, it's the same glass. It has
Mm-hmm.
the same amount of liquid. It's all about your perspective. So, are you walking around your journey with the spirit of abundance as a mindset, or are you walking around from a perspective of lack?
Mm-hmm.
Because the same situations are going to transpire. Do you have an attitude of, I got mine, now you got yours, you get yours? Or do you see that, yes, I have mine, so let me sow into some others so that I can help them too build theirs? I can build community, I can build an ecosystem. Let's put our resources together. Let's be a team. Let's find collaborative ways. And you can only do that if you come into a situation from a mindset of abundance. And so we must make sure that we move from scarcity to an abundance mindset. And what that means is money is just a tool, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
want all resources to flow freely in your experience. You must have a perspective being that there's endless opportunities to create wealth, and wealth not only being wealth of financial resources, access to technological resources, access to human resources, access to health. Your health is your wealth. That's become a little bit cliche these days. But in truth, if you have not protected your health, any wealth that you have attempted to accumulate can oftentimes be completely decimated by trying
Mm-hmm.
to restore your health. We were having this conversation about the cost of these expensive surgeries that oftentimes people end up investing in at the later years of their lives. And oftentimes, the cost of these various treatments and protocols exceeds the wealth that the person has accumulated. So instead of being able to leave or put forth an inheritance for their family, now they've bankrupted themselves, and there's nothing left, because now at the ninth hour, you're looking for a quick fix to try to restore your health, when really your health should have been being maintained along the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's that is one of the things that's so important.
I
But
do
again, if
completely
you don't pay
agree.
attention
Mm-hmm.
to it, then suddenly you find yourself, now I'm trying to catch up. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to any of it, Because it comes back to, I often say this, I said this to my son, how you do anything is how you do everything. But in
Mm-hmm.
addition to making that statement, I demonstrated and modeled for my son over the course of my journey raising him. What he got to do is hear what I say, but more importantly, he got to watch what I did. And that's too
Mm-hmm.
often where, again, in our messaging as parents, as colleagues, as community, as being socialized, we expect microwave outcomes. It's not a microwave outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process that you develop the discipline necessary to every day lean into a certain not only belief, but demonstrate by your actions. I was saying to
Mm-hmm.
someone that if it is, I have a certain belief system, you should see it in how I go about what it is that I do. I don't need to beat you over the head, show up in every meeting, drop my Bible on the table, for example. I don't need to do that. You should be able to notice by my walk, by my behavior, what my beliefs are.
That's right. That should be the ultimate determination of your core beliefs. And people can even see through your demonstrated behaviors consistently over a period of time that they're going to naturally make a presumption that your intentions are good. Yet at the same time, you can behave on the righteous path, the true path for so long, so consistently, and mess it up one time because of a selfish or a narcissistic intention. We slipped, and then that reputation can be disrupted for quite some time.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing is that, again, we're on a human journey. So,
That's right.
are you willing to learn the lessons that are being presented along that journey? Are you stopping to evaluate? I earlier in my career, I studied Dr. Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah,
And I
one of our favorite books.
one of our favorite books. And I remember, the message of beginning with the end in mind. And it's the same thing. This is the mindset and the exercise of imagining that you're at your own funeral where you're being eulogized by your family, your colleagues, your friends, your community. And what would people say about you based upon the example, the journey that you've lived? And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at that and you look at where you are along your journey and you ask, am I on the path to end up at that destination? Or do I need to make a course correction? It's nothing wrong with having to make a course correction because we all have blind spots. Some of them we know, others we don't know. And so this is why it becomes so important to have this mindset of I get to grow and learn something new every day. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I am going to, jump. This is where discernment comes in. Again, another analogy was my grandmother used to say that when you receive inputs, it's sort of like putting in a bunch of flour and then sifting out what you need through a sifter. I know I might be aging myself with this sifter. I don't know how many people bake use a sifter, but is that everything that goes in does not necessarily have to be applied. You sift through, and that's why discernment is so essential. But it also means that your mindset of saying, listen, there is an abundance. There's abundance of outstanding relationships. There's abundance of opportunities to be a contributor to humanity. There's an abundance to lean in and support. And what I find is when I find myself in a situation where maybe I'm feeling that progress is being stagnant, the first thing that I do is look to see who can I bless with my energy in a positive way. And sometimes you do. You put your blessings, you put pearls before swine. And that, again, is where you go, okay, wait a second. It's not for you to be the footstool of another. But if you genuinely believe that you can contribute to the well being of another situation. That was the conversation that I had with some of my colleagues about the vision that I saw in terms of how I was introduced to my assignment in Jamaica. I'm not just going to Jamaica to open my hotels. I could do that anywhere. I could buy a franchise and be an additional hotel. That's easy peasy, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
My assignment is about building an ecosystem. And I remember the first time I visited Jamaica almost, 30 years ago. And it was during that visit that I went out on the glass bottom boat and I looked back at the island from the glass bottom boat and I was praying and I was saying, why am I here? And what is it that you want me to see? And what I received was I looked back at that island and I noticed all of these big luxury resorts along the beachfront. They may have hired 5 people, but then they locked out the rest of the economy. And I went around the island and I started to see, you know, at that time, what was horrifying, these little shacks that people occupied. Some of them looked like they would fall off of their foundation. I mean, how did people build? It just seemed like, how could this country bring this level of tourism and yet the people be starved and locked out of the opportunity? The food that you experience on many of these luxurious resorts is McDonaldized. It's
Mm.
authentic cuisine. It's not idle food. It's, bastardized versions, right? And then the people are captive in these all inclusive environments because they don't want them to go out and spend their dollars within the community. They're told to be afraid. But then here's the flip side, the people treat them in a way that they should become afraid because they've been desperate and starved. If
Mm-hmm.
I see you and you're being kept away and I know you're spending money and I'm over here starving, I want some of those resources too.
That's right. That's just natural
It's
human
just
nature.
natural human
Mm-hmm.
nature. I wouldn't fault a person for that. But for me, what my spirit said was, you know how to do something differently. And so that's why there was a delay. I wasn't trying to fast because I had been offered 30 years ago an opportunity to go into Jamaica and build a very known name brand hotel. And I wasn't ready. And I couldn't move forward with that until I was able to bring what I'm able to bring into the country and shift the ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
to be able
Awesome.
to contribute. If the problem is the smaller business lacks customer service, lacks them, guess what? I know how to train and develop them. I know how
Mm-hmm.
to help them understand customers and how you properly care for your customers. I know how to help them understand how you incorporate technologies and things to allow your business to operate more efficiently. I know how to do that. I know how to help you gain capital and resources when you take care of the other two C's. I know how to do that. And I'm happy to do that. And I know how to do that at scale, which is why I confidently say I can train and develop 10 million companies over the next decade, a million companies a year. I have this vision of having people be able to go into movie theaters around the world and be able to listen to content, much like what we're doing. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
teaching a workshop, I would love for people all over the world to be able to tune into that workshop and glean the ideals necessary to not only shift their mindset, but to shift their outcomes for their families.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a great good, a great mission. I do see our listening audience here today. We have for Africa One in the audience today, joining us from UK, United Kemet, as we call it. She writes, Hotep, Brother Keity, Sister Dr. Steph, and Global LIB family. In addition to embracing concepts of wealth, I consider it essential to imbibe Ubuntu, that we are intrinsically bound in each other's success as individuals, families, communities, and nations. That from For Africa What?
And she's correct. That's exactly what it is, holistically. That's why I feel it so strongly that the continent is calling us home.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, it's calling those of us who've been told what our leadership assignments are. I remember along the journey, having several, experiences. I've been tied to churches and organizations along my entire journey. And I've had several pastors say to me, sister, your ministry is about addressing our economic wounds. But in that, it's not just about providing access to the resources, because we have access to the resources. We must be healed emotionally, because it's the emotional trauma that causes us to misallocate those resources. So I had to be, develop, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that says it 10,000 hours to master something. I put over 100,000 plus hours in each of the areas. And I continue to invest in each of the areas that I speak on. Mindset is one that I've invested in from the time that I was a young girl. I remember being 10 and 11, investing in mindset and growth and development by the content that I read, that the content that I consumed. And if anybody has visited my house or office, one thing that they can tell for sure is that I have a deep library. And even as my son said, you don't even know what I have in my digital library, right? It's like, yeah, if anything, my mom has been doing the work, and she continues to do the work. And the more that I do the work and learn, the more that I come to the table with the wonder and curiosity from a perspective of there's more for me to learn than what it is that I've learned. So I
Mm-hmm.
eagerly embrace the opportunity to learn something new. I look so forward to having these conversations with you, my brother Keedy, because I love being able to be in a space with your brilliance and to be blessed with a nurturing exchange. It is such a joy and honor to have these
Mm-hmm.
conversations with you. And I hope that during these conversations, people hear, but they hear beyond the surface, that they really take time to hear and hear in the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And they hear the truth and the authenticity of what it is my passion is
Mm-hmm.
hoping to convey.
That's right. Well, to return the kind words, you've been with us now for about a year, maybe almost quite a year, and demonstrated that our continuance of this conversation demonstrated why we committed to it in the first place. And I can only imagine that the years that we will accumulate will continue to assemble this, serve as a magnetic force to assemble this collective from around the world, that we can be the change agents to build a new reality, because quite simply, we have to give the generations that follow us, our children and our grandchildren, we have to give them something much better than what's being passed through the generations right now. I did just get this reflection just came up across my desktop, and I think it feeds perfectly this motif for today's conversation that you chose. This conversation, this quote, is from Zen Tao Buddhism. Remember, most of your stress comes from the way you respond, not the way life is. Adjust your attitude, and most of that extra stress is gone. Your thoughts?
100%. I 100% believe it, because it's your perspective. It doesn't mean that experiences don't happen, they do. But what do you make them mean? For example, here's an example. I remember going through transitions in business, right? A business that I created became very, very successful. And then at the peak of its success, people that I was doing business with decided that they wanted to change the terms of our business relationship. It wasn't what we contractually agreed. It wasn't what we ever agreed to be part of our relationship. And at that moment, I was presented with a decision. I either had to accept those changes and go along with those decisions, or I had to listen to my rudder. And the changes were going to change what I felt was not only a legal structure and compromise its legality and put it in an illegal structure. They basically wanted to change me from being a successful separate business into a relationship where they took all the resources, all the revenue from the business, and basically had me serve as a front. And there
Mm.
are people who said that, well, sometimes you just have to pay your dues. So you have to do that. And I said, no, I would not. And I was young. I was, 20, 29, about to have my 30th birthday, or just had my 30th birthday. And I said, no, there's no way. I have not been guided to be in business and to ever have to compromise my integrity to stay in business. So I said, it must be time for me to terminate this particular relationship. And how can I do so and protect my employees? So I put my personal money into the business and then, you know, announced in advance so that my employees, I would give you recommendations. You have a severance period because unfortunately this new set of terms that are and what they did was they withheld money that was owed to me to basically bankrupt my company, because in the advertising business you may work for 3 to 6 months before you're fully compensated for the work, so you have to have enough resources to pay your staff and keep your operations going. But no business has unlimited resources, so eventually you need to receive the money that you've basically leverage. It must come in, and that's how you keep the cycle of your business going.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to tell me that after we've performed the work to the contract specifications, that the client now decided that they were going to give us a discount in the payment, and I knew that that wasn't true. I knew that that wasn't true, which means that I went beyond and had legislation passed and had them investigated. So then their reaction to that was that they were going to put a hit out on me. They threatened to kill me. I
Wow.
begged for my business to be audited. And then they ended up disappearing too, some of them, because they literally had committed fraud on a state contract. I had all the evidence. That had to be handled in silence because you can't, you know, tell. But
Mm.
legislation was changed in the service industry because of this type of behavior. I felt that still somehow I failed in a sense. And it wasn't until I talked to other business people who said, that's not a failure. It's not a failure. You stood on your integrity
Mm-hmm.
and you made the best decision. And now in this journey, that is why, again, you're given something, and how you are as a steward of those resources determines what next you will receive.
Mm-hmm.
I stepped off the global stage because at that same my 30th birthday, all kinds of things happened. My mother suddenly died as well at 48. That was devastating for me.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also in that same year, I became pregnant with my son. So all of these things. And his father had a major medical condition. And so there was just a number of life things. Again, people said, wow, if all those things happened to them at the same time, they would have just committed suicide. And I'm like, why would I commit suicide? This is the valley that sometimes we have to experience in order to get to our next peak. This is
That's
that
right.
character building season where I have to be quiet and I have to understand and I have to emerge on the other side, because it's easy to say that you're one way when everything is going. I had a reality where it seemed like everything I touched turned platinum, which still does. That's the thing, is that never went away. Wherever I have focused my energy, I have left behind prosperous, fixed, repositioned organizations, hence the doctor money. Guess what? Because I kept a spreadsheet because I needed to find some way to evaluate my value. Am I delivering value, or is that a figment of
Hmm.
my imagination? But I knew that the math would math or not.
Mm.
And the math
Yeah.
started mathing. I'm like, dang, I did this. They were here. I did this. And even when I transitioned into real estate development, and I remember them saying, well, she won't be here for more than 90 days, right? That's the initial, what is it, probationary period. By 90 days, I had saved $1 million cost overrun. They didn't know how I did it. I knew, because I knew what was guiding me. I knew the spirit and the source, and I knew how I showed up every day, looking to bring forth my excellence and willing to contribute that energy and excellence in those environments. And that's how I show up every day right now. I don't let my feet touch the floor in the morning unless I've been jolted out of sleep. Now, that has happened on a few occasions where I've had to, someone's interrupted my sleep and I've jumped up. But if I have control of my waking, I don't let my feet touch the floor until I've been quiet and heard what my assignment for the day is,
Hmm.
so that I can
Yeah.
enter that day. But the foundation, my rudder, is about how can I contribute to humanity every single day.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I was reminded I was making some notes for today's conversation of our critical need to learn from failure or adversity, the importance of resilience, and how these so called failures can be seen as learning experiences or just a jolt to get us to change our track and get on more innovative and effective problem solving tracks. Your thought?
Absolutely. When I think about it, so many of the times where I've been in spaces where people have said, "Oh, Stephanie, that doesn't make sense." It was the same thing when I went into real estate development. I remember when I realized I wanted to move into real estate development because in my leadership role in the advertising community, I advised many, cities and mayors on economic development. And I noticed after I put forth a strategy, real estate developers would somehow or another make money. And I didn't quite understand how they monetized the strategy. So I was curious. And I remember after the civil unrest happened in southern Los Angeles, I was asked to originally teach a marketing class for the businesses in South LA because the SBA had put forth a grant that several organizations were participating in. And the question was, why are these people burning up their neighborhoods and their businesses? And the answer was they weren't burning up their neighborhoods and businesses, but that they were not able to access capital. And I said, how could that be? I went to say, I said, well, maybe they don't have enough money. So when I investigated the resources available through the SBA, I was like, wait a second, you can get $1 million to buy a franchise. The SBA has plenty of money. So what is the difference between these businesses? Why are they underfunded? So I asked additional questions and I learned that people would get somebody to write their business plan. They didn't understand what the business plan meant. An MBA student would take the revenues divided by 12, take the expenses divided by 12. The business plan made no sense based on
Mm.
market. More importantly, when it was time for the person to discuss their business plan with the prospective lenders, they couldn't discuss the business plan because they didn't know the business plan.
Mm.
Nobody's going to fund you if you don't know the business plan. The business plan
That's
is your
right.
plan. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure that every person understands how to do a business plan. I don't care if I could teach a 5-year-old. I taught 8-year-olds how to do a feasibility analysis in a 2-hour session. Okay.
Mm.
If I could teach 8-year-olds, I can teach anyone
That's
who
right.
wants to learn. And so I said, I'm going to teach these adults how to do a business plan. They will never, ever, ever have to wonder how to do a business plan for the rest of their lives. I am not going to just feed them, I am going to teach them how to fish for themselves. I use something that I create a back of the napkin analysis. When you call me and you talk to me about a business and I'm considering should I spend any time exploring that business, I do what I call a back of the napkin assessment for before I spend too much time, because my time is valuable. My time is worth millions and millions of dollars. I've already demonstrated that. I've been in charge of multiple billions of dollars, impacting multiple billion-dollar brands, multiple billions of dollars of real estate. I can't waste my time on a $5 situation, but I love to teach and sew into my folks. So I always made myself available in environments. Either I was writing articles, I've been teaching workshops, I've been teaching free workshops. I have 40 years of content before we had internet. Before we had, I mean, if you go through probably my old computer disk, floppy disk, right? Again, age,
Hmm.
you know, the content was
Hmm.
there because
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I gave people complete tools.
Hmm.
I don't want you to be dependent on me. I want you to be able to independently execute on what it is I'm sewing into you. And so,
Hmm.
with that understanding, that is why I also understood that the best times along the journey that you learn is when you experience a so-called failure, if it is
Hmm.
to maintain the curiosity that I make, because it's like, okay, well, if this didn't quite work the way that I wanted it to work, what is it that I can learn from this experience? What is it that I can learn a little bit better? The
Hmm.
experience with the ad agency and the people and my employees, and sadly, the person that put me in the compromise to be, in this situation was sadly a Black woman on my staff. And she was the
Hmm.
person that I mostly leaned into because her prior employer, she was a single mother, and her prior employer would miss payroll, and it would cause her stress. Sometimes it was all kinds of stuff. And I remember
Hmm.
when I hired her, I made sure that I never missed payroll for any of my staff. I was only 20 something. I'm 26. Everybody on my staff is older than me. If payroll was going to be missed, it would be mine. But
Hmm.
none of my employees ever can say that I miss payroll, ever, because
All
I made
right.
it my business. Even if my clients didn't pay the bills. I remember one time I was banking with one of those banks, regular banks. But when they saw the size of business that I was doing, they drove all the way from Woodland Hills to my office across the street from the 5757 Wilshire penthouse. They drove all
Hmm.
the way there and they said, listen, you just tell us if your client hasn't released the funds. We will release your payroll and give you a line of credit so that you're right. You
Hmm.
will never miss payroll.
Awesome. We are today talking about mindset, the first ingredient for success, with our twice a month co host, Dr. Steph, is in the house. We do encourage each and every one of you, make sure you hit the like button. If you're listening on the Rumble, if you're listening on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, do let the algorithms know that you are learning, that you are inspired by what you're hearing, and that these topics we talk about are relevant to you. Or if there's a critique or criticism you want to share, or a subject, a topic you would like Doc to address on one of her appearances, make sure you leave a note. Interactivity is critical to the success of our mission. A couple of talking points I wanted to get in before we wrap it up for today. One, we're talking about mindset, establishing this winning mindset. How important, from your perspective, is it that the person set specific goals that they absolutely positively commit to achieving towards embrace of this mindset of which you speak today?
Yes, it's like Listen, if you want to end up at a destination, people spend more time like planning birthday parties, truthfully, right? You go, okay, I want
Mm,
to have a birthday party on this day. Okay, I want to have these guests. Okay, this is the budget. This is the destination that, this is the place that we want to use, all of those things. Why don't you plan your life the same way? Why don't you
your life
listen
is a birthday
to
party.
your life is a birthday party? Where is it that you want your life to end up? Otherwise, it's like you're just a ship being tossed about to various ports of call. Some of those
Hmm.
ports of call may not be ports that you should end up at. But if you don't have a clear destination, anyone will suffice. But that doesn't mean that that's where you're supposed to be. Now, here's what I believe is I do believe that God's purpose system is the true GPS.
Hmm.
And I think that if you get quiet and you listen to that, yes, along your journey, you'll feel those nudges of recalculation, recalculation, recalculation. Along my journey, because I'm so loyal by nature, by words, by deeds, that sometimes I'm willing to overstay in places that I don't need to be. And
Hmm.
so if I am leaning into an overstay, I end up I say, "Man, why I always get kicked into my destiny?" Like, and recently I was listening to another CEO, Fawn Weaver, the CEO of Uncle Nearest, and she was sharing an analogy about how in the military you're told to burn the boats, right? It's not about a plan A, it's not about a plan B, it's plan A, and lean
Hmm.
into plan A 100%. And I said, that is what is so important. What I see so often is people get caught up in they're chasing quick cash. They're in a hustle mentality and they're busy,
Hmm.
busy, busy, running, 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 running. And it's like you're on a treadmill. That is
Hmm.
not the path to wealth building. Wealth building requires the mindset of a farmer. A farmer requires a long term perspective of planting seeds and understanding what requires a harvest to manifest. And
Hmm.
not all seeds are going to come to maturity. But if you invest and if you learn more about the soil conditions, if you learn more about the nutrition that's required, you'll begin to see that your increase of what your harvest has, it will begin to increase because it continues to build on the seeds you have planted.
Hmm. That's right. And for that farmer, once they commit to planting the seeds with the outcome of being harvesting and aggregating their harvest to insert into the marketplace, there is no half stepping on achieving every step of this complex process. I am teaching a writer's course. I do this about once a year. I'll take on as many people who want to get their book published. You know what this is all about. And I am so committed to seeing my students get on track and get their book out that right now for this next class, which actually ends on April 18th, to show them, I promise you, this will work, but you have to put in the work. That's what you signed up and paid for. That I will probably during this same time period probably put out at least 4 to as many as 6 books, which is I did in that same time period in 2023, just to demonstrate that you can do this. Yeah, Doc, I tell you, it's really tough because a lot of us will set goals that that are not really as firmly established in our heart, our soul, our mind, our life, our mission. And so, therefore, distractions come along. The class takes place on Saturday. Oh, well, I just found out I'm going to have to start working on Saturdays. I hear every excuse to not complete the task. I'm sure you're familiar with this as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, I had to really, you know, reclaim my voice and
Mm-hmm.
be firm in my voice. Again, everyone has an opinion about your life. They think they know more about your life than you. And so I have very gently, but even firmly now said to people who want to tell me about where I am on the journey of my assignment that I don't need your input. And in fact, you are not adding value. You're speaking toxic statements
Mm.
at a time that I am so spiritually connected that those statements could be disruptive if I did not have the mindset, if I did not have developed, if I had not developed the muscle, right? And so again, it really is about, that's why it's starting with source. What are you truly committed to? What is the why? What is the impact that you are seeking to make? Are you writing a book because you want to document your story? Why? Because you want your family to have that story? Then you begin to anchor that decision into something that's bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you just doing it because you think it's a quick path to get rich? Okay, then that's kind of a little bit more of a flimsy anchor that may or may not manifest. Have you even thought about who's going to consume the content?
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about where your book will be placed? Before I wrote any books, I would go into bookstores in the sections where my book would be placed and look and see and study what are the other books in this category? Who are the other authors? What are the books that seem to be selling under this particular topic? Who are the people that can benefit from my message? I'm amazed. I was on speaking yesterday to a group of women investors. And what I hear now, and this is where you're right, my brother, I have to get back to writing more, publishing more. That's literally, it's like I said, oh my God, it's been coming to me from every direction, right? Get
Mm-hmm.
on your content, beef it up, because people say, I love your energy, but more importantly, I'm inspired, but really I take away things from your speaking. Every time you speak, I learn something.
Mm-hmm.
That is my why. I'm not speaking because I want to be popular. I'm speaking because I want to share some principles and give you some value through the lessons that I have taken time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I love to pass that forward.
That's right.
I don't want to transition without blessing as many people as I can bless with all that I've learned because I was
Mm-hmm.
disciplined enough to do the work.
That's right.
I didn't take any shortcuts. It
True
ain't
that.
microwave.
In a microwave culture, microwave society, we don't want to use that technology. Just don't get me off on a tangent about why I quit using microwaves, but I think your analogy is perfect. One more talking point I wanted to get to before we finish, the critical need to support this expansive, reliable mindset that gets our successes, the critical need for continuous learning, to emphasize the importance of lifelong learning and how staying curious and engaged and open to new ideas does lead to this personal and professional growth.
If you want to live a long life, you must stay curious. You must give your brain new opportunities to learn. Some people, I remember you say, oh, you're going to be a lifetime student. How many degrees do you need? And it's like, it's not about how many degrees that I need. Heck, whether I'm earning a degree or not, I'm learning every day. There's something new that I want to learn. There's more that I want to learn than what I've already learned. There's more that I want to learn than what I have already learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives me an opportunity to grow. And here's the thing, when you cut yourself off from learning, it's like cutting a set of flowers off from their base of growth. Eventually, they turn brown and die. Whereas the plant that's still connected to the soil and being nurtured remains green. It may go through its cycles, the life cycle of growth, but it's connected to continue to grow in that soil. And that's what you want to do. That's what I see is I want to remain green.
Mm-hmm.
I have things that I want to learn when I'm 120. I have things that I want to learn when I'm 130. I have things that I want to continue to accomplish. I want to be the fastest woman running a 100-meter dash at 120. I want to jump as far as I can at 120. I want to be competing. I've told my son there are things that I want to do, and there's a lot of them. So I need a lot of life to continue to do all those different things. There's languages that I've put on hold that I can't wait to learn. There's books that I purchased that I couldn't read while I was finishing up law school. So I have books that I can't wait to consume. I can't even take all my books, my bags to Jamaica because the books weigh too much. I have to order a container. They're too heavy. I couldn't get them on the plane.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're going to begin to wrap things up right now. We will have time for any other comments or notes that you wanted to get in before the record finishes, but I do want to take a second and let our listeners know before we wrap it up that they can maintain contact with you and participate in many of the outreaches and activities that you are setting up in the immediate seasons ahead. So, how can our listening audience maintain contact with you?
Absolutely. www.zenoverssgroup.com. Zeniversewellnessgroup.com. And then my vlog is Naked with Dr. Money on YouTube. I promise I'm going to be increasing updated content through that channel. And that has been a recurring drumbeat of what my actions need to be. So I will become much more visible and vocal, putting out content and digitizing a lot of the content that I've created, and re-updating and repurposing new content um, that's still essential along your journeys.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Again, Zenoverse, Zenoverse, wellnessgroup.com, as well as Naked with Dr. Money on YouTube. Your final thoughts, sharing thoughts, any points we may have missed that we need to catch up on before we move forward?
We must work as a collective. We're
Mm-hmm.
stronger together than on an individual silo. So if you think about how you can offer your energy and your genius, what can you contribute to help someone else? If we work together as a unit, we can all accomplish and go further together.
Mm-hmm.
Heal from your hurts so that you don't continue to bring them into your new relationships. And just because you had an experience that didn't work the way you hoped, what did you learn from that? You don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You learn the lessons and you use better discernment, but you get back on in the race, and you get back in the relationship race. And we do that together. We must have a strong team. Collaborate.
Yeah, we must have a strong team as we are to win. And as Curtis Mayfield and so many others reminded us through the songs, we are winners. So we're just winners, maybe kind of out of the habit of winning. But during that time when those great ancestors sang those songs that inspired us, Doc, we won in culture. We won in family. We won in athletics and other competitive engagements. Right now, we got to work harder to be reminded that we are winners. And that's why people tune in to our Making Money Fridays. Twice a month, the second and fourth Friday, we are joined by Dr. Steph. We're winners. Let's get back into that habit. Thanks again, Doc. You always do bring it strong, and I appreciate, love having you in the family. Look forward to many, many more years, many more engagements, and look forward to coming to Jamaica to participate in and hopefully help to lead those Zenoverse wellness retreats that you're going to be hosting. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I can't wait. And I'm looking forward to having you not only coming to Jamaica, but as we go around the world,
Hmm.
share our important messages so that we can heal and help.
That's right. We can and we do. We
Yes.
heal, we help. Our hands are outreached. We're just
Yes.
asking each of one of you just reach up, touch our hands, and let's walk on this magnificent journey together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's my honor and pleasure to share this time with you. Like I said, I look forward to it. And I appreciate you so much for inviting me to be part of your space.
Yo. Thank you so much, Doc. You brought it strong today. And that's what we do here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. Thanks again, Doc, for all you do.
All right. I'll see you all real soon. Be well.
Very good. We'll see you in a couple of weeks now. To each and every one of you, I want to thank you for tuning in today. As we go to move forward, I want to let you know that upcoming in just about what today is the 14th, and 6 days is the first day of the vernal equinox, the first day of spring. In the tradition of our ancient Kemetic ancestors, we reserve these crossings, the equinoxes and the solstices, as a time of spiritual, mental, physical purification as we detox our bodies. It's a time of recommitment, the birth of the sun, the birth of the growth season, the birth or the height of the growth season, the birth of the season of the beginning of rebirth. These things had very deep spiritual meaning to our ancestors who worked so hard to leave a permanent legacy. Doc and I talked today about leaving a legacy for at least 2 generations. Where we're talking now about a legacy. I'm just writing this book on Imhotep's legacy, on Hippocrates' legacies. And these legacies have lasted for 5,000 years, for 2,500 years. So that gives us all the more emphasis on what Dr. Steph brought today about projecting this legacy forward. So one of the things I project forward, I've been doing it for over 20 years now, 4 times a year, I detox and cleanse my body over the course of 21 to 28 days. We're going to be doing, beginning March 20th, a 21-day group detox fast. I'm hoping that you will try it at least once. I contend if you learn to fast one time and see the hard benefits that you get from it, that you will want to keep it up. So we are going to be doing the winter, not the winter solstice, the spring equinox detox fast begins March 20, 2025. And I am going to put up a link here so you can join us as well. And you can do it in one payment or you can do it in 2 payments. We encourage you to step forward and join us. Get your body right. Get your body clean. Get your mind, your body, your spirit. Get it clean. And then let's rebuild everything that we talked about today. Everything, every high priority. Let's get our industry back together. Let's get our families back together. Let's get our entrepreneurship back together. We are winners, and don't nobody hold you back. Not today, not tomorrow, ever. Don't let nobody hold you back. And on that note, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. To your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. Tell your friends about the broadcast. Tell them what we do here and bring them along. Remember, Ubuntu. As For Africa once said, we have to stay in this mindset that I am because we are. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are living in black.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you. Peace, y'all.